Imagine this: you care about someone deeply, but every time things get too close, you pull away, you disappear. Not because you don't love them, but because something inside you screams, this is too much. And then, when the silence stretches too long, you realize you might lose them for good. Sound familiar? This is the reality of avoidant attachment. It's not a lack of love, it's a survival mechanism. But let me tell you something, the past does not define your future. You have the power to break this pattern and build a deep, fulfilling relationship if you're willing to rewire the way you show up. First, OWNIT. If you keep running, recognize that the fear isn't about your partner, it's about you. Your mind is wired to associate closeness with discomfort. But listen, avoidance doesn't protect you, it isolates you. The first step to change is awareness. Avoidant behavior is not a choice, it's a deeply ingrained response, often developed from past experiences that shaped how you view closeness and intimacy. If you've found yourself pulling away from relationships, avoiding deep emotional connections, or feeling overwhelmed when things get too close, it's time to pause and take a hard look at the pattern. Because here's the truth, what you don't owns you. Every behavior we repeat is driven by something beneath the surface. Maybe you grew up in an environment where vulnerability wasn't safe. Maybe you learned early on that depending on someone meant risking disappointment. Or maybe past relationships reinforce the idea that love comes with expectations you don't know how to meet. Whatever the case, your mind has built a defense system that says distance equals safety. And for years, you followed that rule without even questioning it. But the real question is it working? If avoidance truly protected you, why does it feel empty? Why do you find yourself thinking about that person long after you've pulled away? Why does relief turn into regret? See, avoidance isn't about freedom, it's about fear. It's the fear of losing yourself, the fear of getting hurt, the fear of not being enough or being too much. But fear isn't the enemy living your life controlled by it is. Recognizing this pattern means stepping into a space of radical self-awareness. It means catching yourself in the moment when your instinct is to withdraw. It means admitting I'm not running from them, I'm running from what being close makes me feel. And the moment you see that truth, you gain the power to change it. Here's the real game changer. You don't need to eliminate your avoidant tendencies overnight. You just need to disrupt them. The next time you feel the pull to leave, don't react, pause. Observe what's happening inside you. What's the thought running through your head? What's the emotion sitting in your chest? What story are you telling yourself about what will happen if you stay? The more you catch these moments, the less power they have over you. Owning this pattern is the first and most crucial step to breaking it. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And when you start to challenge the automatic response, you create the space for something greater: connection, trust, and a relationship that isn't controlled by the past, but shaped by the choices you make today. What's the belief that makes you run? They will control me. I'll lose my freedom. They will abandon me. Stop. That's an old story, a defense mechanism from the past. If you want love, you must break free from these chains and rewrite that script. The stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. Every action, every reaction, every hesitation, it all starts in the mind. For someone with avoidant tendencies, the mind is filled with scripts that justify pulling away. These stories aren't random, they're built over time, reinforced by experiences and repeated until they feel like absolute truth. But here's the thing, just because a thought feels real doesn't mean it's true. If you want to change how you show up in relationships, you have to challenge the story playing in your head. What do you believe about love? About commitment? About emotional closeness, avoidance, carrying inner dialogue that whispers like, if I get too close, I'll lose myself. If I rely on someone, I'll get hurt. If I open up, they'll expect too much from me. These beliefs don't come from nowhere. They stem from past experiences where closeness led to discomfort, disappointment, or even betrayal. But the problem is, your past is not your present, and yet these old beliefs keep running the show. If you never challenge them, you live in a reality that no longer exists. Start questioning these thoughts as they arise. The moment you feel the urge to withdraw, stop and ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? Is this fear based on my current reality or an old wound? Is there any actual evidence that I will lose myself or be trapped if I stay? Most of the time, you'll realize that your fear is based on a past narrative, not the truth of your current relationship. When you begin to challenge these beliefs, you take back control. You start to see that closeness isn't suffocation, that relying on someone doesn't mean weakness, and that love doesn't automatically lead to pain. The mind is powerful, but you are more powerful than the thoughts you've been conditioned to believe. You have the ability to rewrite your story. Here's a powerful shift. Instead of asking, what if I get hurt? Start asking, what if this connection helps me grow? Instead of thinking I need space to feel safe, start thinking I can create safety within connection. Instead of running on autopilot, make a conscious decision to lean in, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because discomfort is not danger, it's just unfamiliar. And the more you challenge your old beliefs, the more you open yourself to the possibility of experiencing love in a way you never thought possible. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. The moment you feel the urge to run, pause. Instead of disappearing, communicate. Say, I need space, but I care about you. You don't have to vanish to feel safe. You can set healthy boundaries and still stay connected. Discomfort is not a signal to run, it's a signal to grow. The moment an avoidant feels emotional intensity rising in a relationship, their natural instinct is to retreat, to create distance, to regain a sense of control. But here's the truth, control is an illusion, and avoidance is not control, it's fear dressed up as independence. The key to breaking free from this cycle isn't escaping discomfort, but learning to sit with it, to lean into it, and to recognize that it won't break you. The body reacts to emotional closeness as if it's a threat, triggering a fight or flight response. But what if that response isn't a sign that something is wrong? What if it's just an outdated program running in your nervous system, one that needs to be rewritten? The only way to rewire this response is through exposure, small, consistent actions that prove to your mind and body that intimacy is safe. When you feel that rising tension, that urge to withdraw, that moment of panic when someone gets too close, instead of shutting down, pause. Take a breath. Stay in the moment just a little longer than you normally would. Avoidants often assume that leaning in means losing themselves. But true connection isn't about sacrificing your identity, it's about expanding it. Imagine a relationship where you don't have to choose between closeness and freedom, where you don't have to pull away to feel safe. That kind of relationship isn't built by avoiding discomfort, it's built by pushing through it, little by little, until what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This doesn't mean forcing yourself into situations that feel unbearable. It means gradually increasing your tolerance for emotional intimacy. Instead of disappearing for days when you feel overwhelmed, communicate that you need space. Instead of shutting down when a partner expresses their feelings, listen without immediately searching for an exit. Instead of assuming that closeness equals pressure, allow yourself to experience connection without assigning a negative meaning to it. Every time you lean in, even slightly, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your fear. You teach your nervous system that connection is not a threat. You create new patterns that lead to deeper, more fulfilling relationships. And over time, the thing that once felt suffocating starts to feel natural. Because avoidance is not who you are, it's just a habit. And habits can be broken, rewritten, and transformed into something greater. Avoidants crave independence, but deep down, they also crave connection. The secret. Emotional safety. When you come back, don't just show up differently. Be transparent. Share your fears. Let your partner in. The more you do this, the safer love will feel. Emotional safety is the foundation of any lasting relationship. For someone with avoidant tendencies, the idea of safety often revolves around distance, keeping a certain level of space to feel in control. But true safety doesn't come from running. It comes from creating an environment where both you and your partner feel secure, understood, and free to be yourselves. Building emotional safety doesn't mean giving up your independence. It means redefining what independence actually looks like in a healthy connection. For an avoidant, emotional closeness can feel like a trap, a loss of autonomy, or an invitation to inevitable pain. But this fear isn't about the present, it's a conditioned response from the past. The key to breaking free from it is to create a new definition of connection, one that allows for both closeness and individuality to exist at the same time. This starts with honesty, not just with your partner, but with yourself. If you find yourself pulling away, take a moment to reflect on what's triggering you. Are you really suffocating, or are you reacting to an old wound? Are you actually in danger of losing yourself, or is this just unfamiliar territory? When you understand what's happening inside you, you can communicate it instead of withdrawing. Avoidants often fear that expressing their needs will push people away. But the reality is that withholding emotions is what truly creates distance. Emotional safety is built through openness, not avoidance. Instead of assuming your partner will demand too much, give them a chance to understand you. A simple shift like saying, "I need a little space right now, but I care about you," can change the entire dynamic. It replaces mystery and uncertainty with clarity and reassurance. At the same time, safety isn't just about your experience, it's about how you show up for the other person. Your partner also needs to feel secure, and that comes from consistency, not perfection. If you pull away and return without explanation, it creates instability. But if you communicate, even in small ways, you begin to build trust. Trust isn't about never making mistakes, it's about showing up in a way that proves you are willing to work through them. Over time, emotional safety transforms the way you see relationships. Instead of something to escape, connection becomes something you can relax into. The nervous system calms down, the fear of closeness fades, and relationships start to feel less like a battlefield and more like a place where you can truly be yourself. It's not enough to return, you must return with purpose. If you've pulled away and now want to come back, make it count. Be intentional. Say, "I'm here and I'm working on this." Love isn't about avoiding pain, it's about creating something greater than fear. Let me leave you with this: love is not about escaping. It's about transforming. If you're willing to do the work, to challenge your patterns, to embrace the discomfort, then you don't just return to the relationship. You return as the best version of yourself. And that is how you win in love and in life. Recommit with intention. If you return, do it with purpose, be present, accountable, and ready to grow. Coming back into a relationship after withdrawing isn't just about showing up again, it's about showing up differently. It's easy to return in the same way, hoping things will fall back into place, but without real change, the same cycle will repeat. Avoidants often assume that time and distance will reset things, but real connection isn't built on avoidance, it's built on intention. Recommitting to a relationship means making a conscious choice to be present, to engage, and to grow rather than retreating at the first sign of discomfort. When an avoidant returns, there's often an internal struggle between wanting connection and fearing the vulnerability that comes with it. The mind searches for reasons to justify staying distant, worries about losing freedom, concerns about expectations, fears of emotional overwhelm. But avoiding commitment to the process doesn't protect you, it only keeps you stuck. The moment you decide to come back, ask yourself, am I returning just to ease my own guilt or loneliness, or am I returning with a real intention to make this work? That clarity is everything. The next step is to acknowledge the impact of your absence. Avoidants sometimes hope that things will simply go back to normal without addressing what happened. But true reconnection requires honesty. Your partner may have felt abandoned, confused, or insecure during your time away. Avoidance isn't just an internal experience, it affects the person on the other side too. Rebuilding trust starts with recognizing this, not ignoring it. A simple acknowledgement like, "I know I pulled away and I want to work on that," can be powerful. It shows growth, accountability, and a willingness to change. Consistency is key. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic promises. It's about small, steady actions that prove you are present. If your pattern has been to withdraw when things get intense, practice staying just a little longer. If your instinct is to shut down when emotions rise, experiment with expressing even a small part of what you feel. If you're afraid of being consumed by the relationship, set boundaries that allow both closeness and space without disappearing completely. The goal isn't to become someone you're not, it's to become a more aware, more intentional version of yourself. The true test of growth isn't in the moments when things are easy, but in the moments when you feel the urge to run and choose instead to stay. Recommitting isn't about eliminating fear, it's about deciding that love is worth pushing through it. When you return with awareness, honesty, and action, you don't just revive the relationship, you transform it into something stronger than before. Now go out there and transform your relationships. At the end of the day, relationships aren't about perfection, they're about growth. They're about showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. They're about breaking old patterns and choosing something greater than fear. If you've been running, if you've been caught in the cycle of avoidance, understand this: you are not broken. You are not incapable of love. You are simply someone who has learned to protect themselves in a way that no longer serves you. But today you have a choice. You can continue the cycle or you can break it. You can keep withdrawing or you can lean in. You can let fear control you or you can take back your power and redefine what love means for you. Because love isn't something that traps you, it's something that sets you free when you engage with it fully. So if you're coming back, come back differently. Come back with awareness. Come back with intention. Come back not just to be in a relationship, but to grow within it. Because when you step into love with courage, you don't just change your relationships, you change yourself. And that is the foundation of a life truly worth living.